Good evening. I want to welcome you to another segment of the Jermaine Brown Sports Talk Show. Today is Thursday, November the 2nd, 2023. Tonight's topic is going to be about something that just took place about 2 nights ago, really Tuesday night to Wednesday morning, depending on which part of the coast you're in, whether you was on the West Coast or the East Coast. But I'm on the East Coast, so it took place around 1 o'clock my time, but 10 o'clock on the West Coast time. And that was that Mark Davis, the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, I still have trouble saying that name. I think of them as the Oakland Raiders, and I always will think of them as the Oakland Raiders, but that's neither here nor there. But he fired his coach, Josh McDaniels, and the GM there, Ziegler, or how do you pronounce his name? It was a long time coming. It was something that should have been done a long time ago. However, now Antonio Pierce is now taking over as the head coach of the team. Drinking water, by the way. But anyway, is taking over as the head coach of the team, and he's going to provide some energy. Now, why am I making a show about this firing? Because quite frankly, I'm not a Raiders fan. However, I will be rooting for them the remainder of this year, except for when they play the Jets. But I will be rooting for them the remainder of this year. But why am I talking about it? Because, see, right now there's a lot of talk, chatter amongst the so-called experts that Mark Davis needs to swing big and go and get a big name head coach. And I'm going to tell you why that is a mistake. Mark Davis just fired Josh McDaniels, who he is paying a lot of money to for the next 4 or 5 years. However long, because when he originally signed the 6-year deal, so it's really about 4 more years because he's in the second year of the 6-year deal, and he's paying him a lot of money, and he fired him. But prior to that, he had a guy by the name of Jay Gruden. I mean, not Jay, sorry, John Gruden. John Gruden, who had a 10-year, $90 million or $100 million deal. And he fired him about 3, 4 years into the deal, which means he still has about another 6, 7 years on that deal that he has to pay John Gruden for, unless the courts say that he doesn't owe him that money, John Gruden is most likely going to see that money. Now, that being said, so those were supposedly two big name hires that the owner went on ahead and did. Now, see, the Josh McDaniels hire, which was really funny because when they fired John Gruden, a guy by the name of Rich Bisaccia, that's how you pronounce his name, but Bisaccia, who was the special teams coach or something like that, but he took over the team on an interim basis. He helped lead them to the playoffs. And Derek Carr had like his best year that year, had led them to the playoffs. And the players told Mark Davis that they wanted Bisaccia to remain the coach. But Mark Davis wanted to go in a different direction. And that's when he went with Josh McDaniels, and now we done seen the results of that. Okay? And so he went after two so-called big name coaches or big hires. Now the names that the media wants him to go after, and these are two names that I'm hearing often. Oh, okay. The two names that I'm hearing often is right now currently the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. Okay. And the other one is the head coach of the Colorado Buffalo. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is a mistake. Those coaches are going to cost you a lot of money. They're not going to come cheap. Matter of fact, I think Michigan is about to offer him a new contract. So I think he's only going to be using the NFL to get a bigger contract out of Michigan. So you say, okay, Jermaine, you know, so what would you do? Okay. Um, what would you do? Well, I would stay with the coach that I currently got right now, Antonio Pierce. I think that's the way to play this. Oh, and before I forget, for those who don't know, I mean, I think I'm talking to a bunch of just football fans who would know, but those who don't know, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines in college is Jim Harbaugh. And I love Jim Harbaugh. He's been great. He's been successful everywhere he's been. So I have no issues with him. The other coach, excuse me, for the Colorado Buffaloes is Deion Sanders. So let me just get those two names out the way. So Harbaugh and Deion Sanders. Now, here's the problem. If you go and you hire them, you're gonna have to pay them. He's already paying two coaches not to coach the team. This is very, very expensive. Because I think it's been reported that he owes anywhere from another $60 to $100 million for between these two coaches to not coach the team. And I'm talking about Gruden and McDaniels to not coach the team. This is getting very, very expensive. And quite frankly, the return on investment has been lousy. So why not give Antonio Pierce? And let me see who's the name of the new GM. Give me a second. I want to be respectful of his name. Okay, and the new GM. Okay, matter of fact, now they're only paying two coaches not to coach, but he is also paying two GMs not to GM. Mike Mayock and Dave Ziegler. So he's paying them not to GM. Keep that in mind. Even though their salaries are a lot smaller than the two coaches, but still, that's money he's still got to be paying them. So why not? So right now, Champ Kelly is the new GM. He moved up from the assistant GM to the GM spot. Why not allow him and Antonio a grace period of a couple of years to see if they can get this turned around, rather than going and swinging for the fences again? Because you've swung for the fences twice and you've missed big. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so to me, and they say, oh, Mark Davis is one of the poor, if not, he's the poorest owner in the NFL, the poorest owner. Well, if you're the poorest owner in the NFL, and yes, his net worth or his team's value is not as high as, say, the others, does it make sense to keep paying for high-end coaches to get substandard results? So let's see what these guys can do before we say, because you can always go and get another big time, big name head coach. If Antonio Pierce and Champ Kelly doesn't work out, you can always go, because you are the Raiders and you're in Vegas, and there's only but 32 of these jobs. So there's no such thing as, even though there are bad jobs in the NFL, there are no real such things as bad jobs in the NFL. Coaching jobs I'm referring to. Because at the end of the day, there's only 32 of them. So because of the scarcity, and in any given year, you might have anywhere from 5 to 7 openings, 7 usually the max. So there aren't but so many openings. So why not give these two an opportunity? Let's not only, and to me, the media is being really unfair about this, but I understand why they're doing it. But no, if I'm Mark Davis, this time, let these two run this organization and let's see what they can do before you decide to cut bait with them. And because, see, Carolina made the same mistake, in my opinion, a year ago. You know, the owner there in Carolina, he fired the head coach 4 games into the season. Okay, Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator, took over the organization. He not only turned them around, but he put them in a position where they could have made the playoffs, but they didn't. And they did, and everybody there was saying he should stay as the head coach, the permanent head coach. But instead, the owner wanted to go big name hunting, and really, in my opinion, he didn't get a big name. Okay, he got Frank Wright. Now, Frank Wright, Wright, he's not a big name guy, but he's an offensive guy. But if you notice, Carolina was struggling offensively. But if he would have kept the other guy, he would have been better off. But instead, he didn't want to keep Steve Wilks, and he wanted another guy. Well, all I'm saying to Mark is don't make that same mistake again. Stay with these two, and let's see how this plays out. Not only really for this year, but at least give them a year or two, because it's not like, oh, their contracts end at the end of this year. So you can go ahead and let this play out, and let's see what they're about. And if they're no good in a year or two, you can always replace them. But at least allow this to play out, and let's see if they can get this team on the right course, because there is some talent on the Raiders. There is some talent there. They're not talentless. They're not a dumpster fire like some other locations that we know of in the NFL, a la, say, the Chicago Bears. The Bears right now is a dumpster fire. They don't know if they're going or coming. At least the Raiders, you not only got talent, and the Bears got some talent, but they're poorly coached. The GM is still a question mark because, we don't know how his so-called rebuilding is going, so they're a mess there, and that's not surprising. But all I'm just saying is to Mark Davis is don't make the mistake you made a couple of years ago by getting rid of your assistants who was doing a good job. Keep them and let them, because that old thing, you got to have a big name to sell the arena. No, you don't. The fans do not come to the stadium to see a coach. Fans don't pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to see a coach. Fans pay hundreds, if not $1,000 to see players and see players play at a high level. It's about the players, not the coach. Okay? Bill Belichick is not the genius everybody makes. And I like Bill Belichick, don't get me wrong. But he's not the genius people make him out to be. Notice not only has he not won since Brady left the building, but his teams have gotten progressively worse since Brady's left the building. Okay? So that tells me that their success really was about Tom Brady, not so much Bill Belichick. Because I'm not saying you were supposed to win Super Bowls when Brady left the building, but this team was annually not only winning the division, but at least making the playoffs. Because if you win the division, you're gonna make the playoffs. So you win in the division, making the playoffs, but they was usually going deep in the playoffs. Now they can't even get a wild card spot. That's how bad they have been. And right now they're last in the division and they're not going anywhere. And they don't seem to have any sense of direction. But the same coach is still there. So what changed? The quarterback. So it's really about the players, not the coach. And so if you got not only good players there, but if they're winning, the fans will come out to see them play and root for them. It can be a home field advantage, unlike LA. LA is a lousy home field advantage for the Rams and the Chargers. Because why? It's not a pro football town. Sorry, it just isn't. I want to thank you for watching another segment of Jermaine Brown Sports Talk Show. Have a good evening.